I'm also needing reminders to stop recording lately too, especially if I meet with a student after. That's been my latest mess up. I actually subscribed to Gimkit for a year for a couple reasons. One, the options under the free version, not good, and I just really like the gamification. And two, I was kind of looking for, I'll have to look for an article about the guy who created it. Gimkit was created by a high schooler for a high school coding project. Now, I don't know, how much money he's making, which is not actually the point, but he created something for high school, and now he has a team of 4, including himself, very small business. Um, and I would rather give him my money than one of the other companies that's, a bigwig business. So that was pretty cool. So a teenager created Gimkit. So be thinking about your choices today. We're either going to do a climbing game, a fishing game, or a pushing and shoving game. So it depends how violent you would like to get. I haven't played the pushing and shoving game yet, but I'm looking forward to trying it someday. This morning's group did not vote for the pushing game. We did fishing, and somebody caught a very rare fish in the purple pond, so that was pretty exciting. My Nearpod is still not done saving, so we're going to go to the slideshow. So you will need to be at my screen and not the Nearpod, obviously, because for some reason Nearpod doesn't want to save my work for me. So today's goal, after you examine the meme of the very sleepy dog, off of ledges, I think, almost Mario type ledges. Luke kind of looks like ledges. Um, so we are going to do just a full scale review of Unit 4, not everything. I know I didn't put the link in the chat. Reiki, come on now. I am like all out of sorts today. I need spring break, like right now. I found this meme, if you can see it close enough. I think if you look at a clever designing ad to make a bag of chestnuts actually look like a squirrel's cheeks, I thought that's a pretty cool designer. So yeah, spring break. You have lessons next or class lessons on your planner all next week, but next week you have no live lessons unless your teacher has communicated differently in his scheduling. So no live lessons next week. Then the following week is spring break. You come back on March. Yeah, no lessons next week, Friday. Yep, Friday is your first day break. So Monday through Thursday, no scheduled live lessons unless your teacher has contacted you otherwise. Um, some of you might be doing your state testing next week, depending on your area of Wisconsin, your ACT or pre-ACT testing. We have spring break then the last week of March, and then we come back Monday, March 31st. So we'll be almost into April when you come back. That week, still no live lessons. I'll be traveling that week. So if you are state testing in the Racine and Milwaukee area, that's where I'm going to be. So I'll get to see some of my students those days. So no live lessons that first week of April either. Because half of the staff will be traveling. So difficult to do live lessons there. So we're going to review our Unit 4, just some of the highlights, and then we will do some Gimkit. We'll give you a chance if you have any questions on your portfolios as well. So again, very quick review. You've seen any of the review slides. You've seen them before if you've come to class regularly, and if you've been here and there, then you might have missed a few, but a lot of you have been coming real regularly. So raster versus vector, we talked about the logistics between them, bitmap versus math, scalable versus not scalable, or you may have read the word lossy versus lossless compression. The vectors are going to be compressed in a way that they do not lose their quality, called lossless, I believe. So raster versus vector. And then we took a look at what would be situations where you would use raster versus vector. Your midterm, since we're getting close to that, your midterm is all Unit 4. It does not go back to Unit 3, 2, 1. It's all Unit 4. And a lot of the questions are looking at basic design principles, some principles of animation, but also looking at principles of illustration, so vector images. So just good quality design and then the features. Um, so framing and scale and rule of thirds, all of those apply to both raster and vector, anything that you're creating, but more so to vector. There will be information on photo shoots. Now, if you've been here, you've seen these cute doggy photos before. Luke, you might have missed these on last Friday. I'm not a dog person, but boy, these are some cute doggy photos. Part of your lesson, your units on photography talked about thinking about your location, thinking about framing, thinking about aspects of lighting, which is the hardest thing to control in a photo shoot that's planned for a specific day, and talking about taking lots of test shots before you do that actual photo shoot. So you can see some really good examples of consideration of framing and perspective in both of these. Looks like I like the perspective of the one on the right too, Carter, because you're right at ground level with that dog, so you get a view that you wouldn't necessarily always see. And the one in the middle looks just way too posed, but the haziness in the background, those are likely some post-processing effects that were added either in GIMP or another raster-based editor. There will be stuff on your midterm understanding understanding differences between different software applications, like knowing that GIMP is a downloadable piece of software. It's free, it's open source, but it has to be downloaded to your computer. It would not be a Chromebook friendly application, whereas Vecteezy and Pixlr, Pixlr especially, very user friendly on the Chromebook, also open sourced, but I know both Vecteezy and Pixlr do have paid versions as well, but they are open source. And then we looked at vector, the files created by algorithms. You still want to consider your audience, your purpose, your reasoning for your creation before actually making that creation, rule of thirds, and then layering. We also talked about how GIMP is excellent for layering and masking and filters and doing color alteration. Pixlr also has layering. Vecteezy, a little less to Vecteezy, no layering, but you would need that layering aspect, especially if you wanted to create your own GIF, which GIMP is really good for that. For some reason, elements of illustration are all over your midterm. I actually just made your Jeopardy moments before joining class, and a lot of questions are about the specifics on elements of illustration, which came up in lesson 3. So line, shape, form, value, contrast, texturing and patterning and gradients, and then typography, those elements common in vector images within logos, which logos and brochures and print media that you might use vector media for. So elements of illustration from lesson 3, there's a lot of that on your midterm. Just a third of what I showed you last time, comparing raster versus vector. We talked a little bit about what type of projects lend themselves more to vector and what projects lend themselves more to raster. Raster, think R, think realistic. Photography, images on websites, social media posts, digital paintings. Vector images, anything that's going to include a lot of typography or text. Anything that's going to be created in multiple sizes. Like if you're using a logo that's going to need to be on both a billboard on the side of the highway and on teeny tiny business cards, you have to go with vector because it's going to be able to be resized. Posters, banners, computer animated drawings, architecture designs, all are vector. So if we're thinking illustrating, drawing, typography, font choice, logos, we're thinking vector. If we're thinking of digital photography, needing to touch up and recolor and add filters, we're working with raster-based work. Adobe Illustrator, Core iDraw, Inkscape, all paid functions. Same thing with Photoshop and Affinity Photo. GIMP would be the only open source. I should probably add Vecteezy under Vector. Vecteezy also, you can download different vector icons in Vecteezy too. A lot of Creative Commons free to use for educational purposes vector icons. Then we spent time Friday mostly on animation. Although Unit 4 covers animation, it didn't really ask you to do a whole lot with animation, which I thought was kind of interesting. Kind of wish it would have, because I do enjoy it. So thinking of animation beyond cartoons. So when you think of animation, the first thing you think of is cartoons. Think again, because you've probably animated things within presentations. If you've made anything zoom in or zoom out, if you've made a photo spin as it comes onto the screen, or adding, having text enter and exit. Let's see, animation, the biggest purpose of using animations within applications would be to create focus. So not to distract the audience, but to focus. What do you want your audience to focus on? Where do you want their eyes to be? If you have pieces zooming in and zooming out left and right, then we're not really considering those design principles. We're distracting our audience. Animated GIFs, also animation. And I don't have on here the fact that when you hover over on a website and you have a tooltip pop up, or when a website is loading and you have that little hourglass that is spinning, that's an animation that's applied to that website as well. So little examples of animation that you're seeing on most websites that you go to. It makes it interactive. It makes the website engaging. I'm just going to check if I see my Nearpod is still saving. So I'm gonna kind of give up on presenting through my Nearpod. So it still seems to be, I still have the dots going and saving. So we're gonna end up staying away from Nearpod, I guess, today. We looked at simple animations that you can create through Google Slides. Using duplication and upping the transparency can make it look like an item, or in this case, a character, is disappearing. So even within Google Slides, although it takes a lot of slides to create a little bit of animation, the work isn't hard, but it's kind of tedious. Okay, we have an interactive activity that we can't do unless Nearpod loads. So we may have to punt on that one. I think what I might do is, if you just give me, Reiki, I'm reading your message. You've done the animations in PowerPoint? Because PowerPoint, you can actually, with the click of a couple buttons, instantly convert your slides to video, so it auto plays. Google Slides, you can publish it to the web, so it auto plays as well. I'm going to exit and see if I can't get Nearpod to go, so you can try out your matching pairs, because that'll be a good practice for your quiz as well. So just give me about 30 seconds to reopen Nearpod. We'll see if it maybe works. Sometimes just loading and reloading will help. So let's go save and go to Nearpod. And it's still telling me it's okay. Now it's actually really saving. So here we go. It was just fake saving before. Now it's real saving. I'll switch my screen. So if you're still looking at my tab, I mean, even what I'm doing right here, just hovering over, that's an animation, just where it switches in Nearpod and asks me, all right, what do I want to do? I want to teach, I want to do live participation, and we'll give you your link. All right, link for the Nearpod is now in the chat since it's working. So go ahead and grab that link. Go ahead and join, and I will move the Nearpod all the way ahead to slide 13 so you can practice your matching pairs. There we go. Jeremiah's in, Carter's in. Now we got a whole bunch of you in. Again, matching pairs, not for speed, but for accuracy. So try to make as many as the matches, the 12 matches with the least number of mistakes. At the end, we'll spin the wheel of choices for a little prize. Noor, are you doing okay getting in? I don't see you showing up in there yet. And Noor, okay, it's loading, perfect. I'll talk to your Noor after class if you can stay around for a second or two and we can talk to you about your dropped portfolio question, okay? In this morning's class, I had a triple way tie of 12 for 12. So I had to put my money where my mouth was and do a spin the wheel for all three of them. And it was a good day. There were no Rick rolls this morning. That means they're all going to come up this afternoon. Or maybe not. Luke says no. Jeremiah, I think you're going to be hard to beat. I'm going to turn on student pace so that as you finish, you can take a look at slide 14, 15, 16, and 17. Those are your portfolios for this unit. So I'm going to turn it on all the way through. Actually, I'm going to turn it on all the way through 18 because 18 is a collab board that you could post questions or ideas or concerns that you have about your portfolios. So if you're still working on the matching pairs, you are free to keep working. I'm going to switch the screen, but it will not switch for you. But I will reshare my screen. So, and you are free to move through the Nearpod at your own pace to take a look at the specifics that I have listed on the portfolios. So let me just reshare my screen there. So and then we'll come back to the results of your matching pairs towards the end, and we'll spin the wheel at the end too. So for your first portfolio, it's a photo shoot collection of 8 photos, and it's related to it says the Connexus directions say it's related to the Outdoor Adventure Gear Company featured in the case study in lesson 1. It is actually not in lesson 1, because lesson 1 is just the intro. If you happen to be looking at my screen, it's actually not in lesson 1. It's actually in lesson 2, because lesson 1 is just the intro. And lesson 2 goes through, starts with a section that's just called Case Study, Plan and Execute a Photo Shoot. And that's where it goes through the things that you'll want to consider: framing and scale, the rule of thirds, perspective, your foreground, background, and middle distance. Those are the things you want to consider when you're planning a composition, your location, models and props, and so on. Having a, and again, you are welcome to add to the collab board on slide 18 if you have questions or suggestions about this photo shoot. Then when people watch the recording, they'll be able to see that as well. Having a person in your photo shoot is completely optional, so you do not have to have a model. Also, you do not have to have any adventure outdoor gear in your photos too. The lesson says if you've got nothing related to outdoor gear, you are not required to have outdoor camping gear to be able to do this assignment. They actually suggest you could do a photo shoot with pens or highlighters or markers or any sort of inanimate object that could be a product for a company. So I had a student already turn in his photo shoot using very clever representations and angles of pens that were stuck into the snow outside his house. So he considered his surroundings, did some from different angles. It was clear that it was well planned out. It did not include any outdoor gear whatsoever. The idea is that you're thinking about your location, that you're taking more than 8 pictures, and then really considering which are your best ones to submit. When you submit your shots, either try to submit them in one file. It could be a zip file, or you could insert all your shots into a Word document. Make sure that you save your photos in a way that you can re-access them, because you're going to need them for the next portfolio and the next one. And then Luke, we should be getting to your question pretty soon. I think the answer is probably yes. Your second portfolio basically just involves taking one of your 8 pictures, importing it into a raster editing software. So if you don't care to download GIMP to your computer, and there's no requirement that you do that, you can put it in Pixlr, you could put it in Canva. Canva is a raster editing photo. And yep, Luke, yep, you're moving ahead. Yeah, there is another brochure coming up. No text. It's all about product and photo placement. So you're not putting any text in there. You'll be using selecting an area and recoloring the image. So you'll have to submit both the original and then the color revised image. Luke, I'm thinking, yep, you could do a color inversion, just showing that you've done editing, working with the color of whichever photo you choose. And then finally, for the brochure, the directions say use a vector editing software of your choice, Vecteezy or Inkscape. You can use Canva as well. Love Canva. You may use a template. you can definitely use a template, but specifically when the directions are saying to really focus on your, yep, that's correct, Luke. Yep. Show that you understand using color messing around tools. What you're focusing on with the brochure is paying attention to the rule of thirds and placing your photos in a way that looks attractive. So I actually pulled from Canva. They actually have a nice little camping brochure. If you've used Canva before, you know how to mess with the colors and the fonts. You don't have to have any actual text in there. It's all filler text, but you need to figure out how to cleverly place your 8 photos among a 3-panel, 2-page brochure. The little talk bubble above my head is actually telling you how to turn on grid lines in camera, but in Canva. So I'll do just a quick little demo because it's not necessarily intuitive. So I'm just going to open my brochure up and open it up in another tab. In order to access the grid lines, my grid lines are turned on, so they're really light. It's divided into 9 sections by the rule of thirds. The grid line access is under File, and then Settings, and then Add Guides. When you click Add Guides, it's going to ask you, well, how do you want to do this? Choose the 3x3 grid, and then that's going to give you a rule of thirds guide it's going to divide both into 9 sections, or 9 total sections, 3x3. So brochure is all about placement of your photos, paying attention to layout. So it should be a visually pleasing layout. No text is necessary. You can use the filler text from Canva. All right, this is part 2 of activity 3, but I think I pretty much told you everything. Connexus, if you look at the red text that I put on here, Connexus legitimately says use the fonts given to you by the client. They did not give you any fonts. So there are no font directions to use. So Connexus is wrong. You can use whatever fonts you deem are appropriate for this project. So you do not have to follow any client font specifications. And you will import your 8 photos. So you already will have done half of this by taking the photos. Then you need to slap them in a brochure and make it look nice. And we're at that collab board. And Luke is suggesting just read the lessons. I like that. I don't think you put an address on Bartholomew's birthday party, Luke, so I can't come to the party. I don't even know if you had a time on there. And cats make me sneeze, but I like that name for a cat. All right, I don't see any questions on the chat, but it's not too late. You can, or on the collab board, Bartholomew. Is that what? Okay, yeah. No questions or tips. Awesome. My tip would be don't search for the client provided font because there isn't one. You'll be searching forever. And I think I put that on the lesson intro, and if I didn't, I'll go back and do that. Okay. I'm going to turn off student pace, bring you back. So Friday's going to be a Jeopardy review. We will split into either 2 or 3 teams, depending on how many people. Ideally, 3 or 4 people is nice for a team. And your efforts will earn you bonus points on your midterm. And you might need them. Some of the questions are pretty nitpicky. So first place, I think last time we did 4 points added to the midterm. And second place team, 2 points added to the midterm. If it's a third place team, they're going to get something too. And then we won't have any live classes until Tuesday, April 8th, with all of our testing days in there. Spring break's a good time to catch up. If you have wound up falling behind, spring break's a good time to get a few things done. So now we're going to have to make some decisions on GimKit. So let's see, this is digital design. Semester 2, Unit 4 review. So choices. All right, Luke wants the pushing game. So Don't Look Down is the climbing game.